Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
All right. Well, once again, I want to welcome everybody. Jesse, we are the Washington State Association of Head Start and ECAT. We're a C3 organization that represents Head Start programs. Those are the providers in the state, and of course, the parents and the kids. I'm the executive director of the association, Joel Ryan. And this is a session that we've been doing with a multitude of candidates focused on families with young children. Each of the forums are recorded and we make them available on all our digital platforms. And of course, we'll send you also a copy so you can send it around or distribute any way you like.
Great.
We've been keeping the forums to about 30 minutes. And we've been trying to be pretty uniform with the questions so that each candidate's getting the same questions. Your opponent is also going to be participating in a forum as well. And if we have time at the end, we'll make some room for additional questions from attendees. I don't think that's going to happen tonight, considering we're the attendees.
You never know.
You never know. So I just want to say today, again, we're joined by Jesse Jensen. He's the candidate for the 8th Congressional District in Washington State. It includes Sammamish, Issaquah, and Auburn. Doesn't include Seattle and Tacoma. But I know it's out in Chelan. We have a coworker out that's from that area. So, thanks for joining us. And I just wanted to start out by just giving you an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us what interests you in joining us today.
Great. Well, thank you again for having me. Before we hit the record button, we were sharing, shall we say, war stories of children and COVID-19 and ways that we're trying to get through. I am the father of 3. Savannah is 2.5. Harper is 3 months old, and Hunter is 4. I typically go in age chronological order, but I like to mix it up so that everybody feels like they're number one. I am also a 4-tour U.S. Army Special Operations combat veteran. I served for 7 years, enlisted in the Army after serving some time in Capitol Hill, working for Senator John Thune. I am honored to be the Republican nominee for the 8th Congressional District. I want to bring servant leadership. And there we have an additional attendee. Hi, how are you? I want to bring servant leadership to the job. My dad was a pastor, and he was very big in early childhood education and learning. My mom was a janitor when I was growing up. And I went with her to clean homes in Southern California. And my education was kind of on the job with her. And I think that we probably could have benefited from the utilization of Head Start or an ECAP-like program in California when I lived there. So if I am honored to be chosen by the 8th Congressional District to represent them, one of the things I'm going to fight hard for is early childhood education funding. I'm also a big proponent of vocational education in our schools. I'm the grandson of an IBEW electrician. I have 5 brothers-in-law that are in the trades. And a lot of those guys came to their career path later in life and could have benefited from some high school career education and vocational training and certifications that it's very difficult to navigate once you're outside of that educational system. And, I think that there's just a whole host of things that we need to focus on, and education is certainly one of them. So again, thank you for the opportunity to speak. Again, Jesse Jensen, candidate, Republican nominee for the 8th Congressional District.
Cool. Thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Yuval to start us off.
Great.
Thanks,
you.
Jesse.
So our warm-up question for today is, since our forum is focused on young children and families, what was your favorite children's book growing up and why?
So it's actually pretty cool. I'm able to read the same book to my kids. It was Pancake Pie, and it's a story about a cat named Mercury that goes to find all the fixings that are needed in order to make the pancake pie. And there's, it was actually targeted, I think, at like 8 to 9 year olds. We started reading it pretty early on. And it's pretty cool that my parents were able to keep a hold of that book. And it is Hunter and Savannah is one of their favorites. They want a cat, and one of the leading names is Mercury. Figaro is another leading contender from Mickey Mouse, but Pancake Pie was one of my favorites, and it's been a cool experience to be able to read that to my kids.
Thank you for sharing that. Our next question is, what is your definition of early learning?
It's a great question. Of course, Head Start started in 1965 and was originally slated to help kids that are 3 and 4 years old. Of course, we're seeing since the mid 90s that a lot of that education has become earlier and earlier. And I think that that's an important aspect of the program. And I think that we need to provide as much learning as we can. The more words that are spoken in a home earlier on have a direct correlation to a kid and an adult's success later in life. So I think it's incredibly important, especially for some of our underserved communities, to have access to early childhood education as early as possible, which is one of the reasons outside of the Head Start program that I'm supporting universal broadband. That will be one of the first sort of priorities that I take on to help fight the homework gap, because especially in the era of COVID-19, we're seeing that homework gap only grow, especially in rural, urban communities of color, even in places like Issaquah, Sammamish, Hobart, Covington. In Western Washington, Washington State's this technology hub, and yet there's still places that don't have broadband access. So regardless of the age of a child, we want to make sure that they have access to all of the educational learning opportunities virtually, as well as in person, which is, again, one of the reasons that ECAP and Head Start were founded.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by April, who is one of our parent leaders.
Yeah, and I think you answered a lot of this question, but I'm going to ask it anyways.
I'll do it again. Yeah, thanks, April.
That's something. Research shows that investments in comprehensive early childhood pay off, particularly for disadvantaged children and families. Head Start is one of those high-quality, comprehensive early learning programs that serves the most at-risk families, including children under the poverty level. Do you support increasing Head Start funding? Why or why not?
I do. I think Head Start funding has been historically underfunded. I think that we need to fix that funding gap, and that's something that I will fight for. As I said in my previous response, early education learning has a direct correlation onto a child's success in elementary school and pre-K learning, and that follows a child all the way through high school. So much like a foundation of a building, right? Early childhood education is crucial and will follow a child through high school, on through college, and into their total earning potential. And that's one of the reasons that, a lot of folks call it what you will, but some of the systemic barriers that we're seeing in this country and even in Washington State stems from inequitability at an early childhood learning stage. So we need to make sure that we're doing everything that we possibly can to make sure that that's fully funded, and that the public-private partnerships that we as a governmental agency, as a government, are making sure that those programs are properly administered and that there isn't any fraud, waste, or abuse in those programs, and we're being as efficient as we can for the government dollars that are going into that program.
Thank you. So many children attending school online due to COVID-19 has shown us the inequities and inequality of opportunities in the public school system. What will you do to address this issue?
So I mentioned it earlier on, but one of the things that I want to do is universal broadband. Especially during COVID-19, we need to find a way to safely live with the virus and make sure that we're getting the economy going back again and kids safely back to school. We need to follow the science. That said, I think that there is going to be a need for teleeducation, certainly a need for telehealth, which impacts and directly correlates as well to a child's ability to learn at school, to make sure that they have access to the medical needs and medical care that they need, as well as access to the educational learnings. And I don't think it's much of a secret with any of us walking around with a supercomputer in our pockets. We know what the advantages are to access to the internet. It really is an amplifying, powerful tool. And if a school district doesn't have access to it, I grew up in rural America where there was I'm going to forget the name of it. The Books on Wheels was the program where they actually would deliver these books. And I remember with incredible excitement, I think it was every month they came. And I think it was Garfield, and there was a few other books that I would always get, but I would always get some of the other educational books as well. And really, the broadband is today's version of books on wheels, right? In some of these underserved communities, if we can't have access to the rich online learning and resourcing tools that we have available on the internet, we're really leaving our kids behind. And I, kind of touched on this earlier as well, but we need to make sure that, kids in public schools, high schools, again, have that strong foundation that they can draw on so that they're not falling behind and just sort of having this compounding effect of feeling like they're getting left behind by their peers.
Thank you for that. April will be asking our next two questions.
Yeah, the next one. I apologize for my little.
The baby's going to help too, it looks like.
Yeah. She's sitting here going, yep. I heard it. Super cute. So speaking of young children, how do you plan on increasing access to families with young children in need of quality, affordable health care, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic?
So sorry, just so I'm clear, it's how are we expanding access to healthcare for young children? Yeah, again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I do think that universal broadband is going to be very helpful in telemedicine. I think one of the few silver linings coming out of the COVID crisis was that we see the utilization and some of the hurdles being removed for telemedicine. The other thing that we need to make sure that we're doing is fully funding Medicare and Medicaid. I have a plan actually that you can find on my website, jessejensen2020.com, that provides more funding for that while keeping the total expenditure for our healthcare system at or essentially neutral, and by finding ways to create some efficiencies in the program. The other thing that we need to make sure that specifically within the Medicaid program is the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, to make sure that we're providing as much funding into that program as we can. Additionally, we need to make sure that we have WIC is fully funded, Women, Infants, and Children, so that you're fully funding that program. One of the other things that I hope to do, if elected, is to become a member of the Agriculture Committee, which has oversight onto a lot of the food and sustenance programs, to make sure that we're making sure that our children, that our pregnant mothers are fully able to access the nutritional needs that they need to take care of themselves during early childhood or during prenatal care.
That's great. Thank you. The next question is about childcare, which I wish I really had right now.
Yeah, you wish you had right now.
Childcare providers are often some of the lowest paid workers that we have, many times making less than dog walkers and parking lot attendants. While it's still hard for families to find and afford care, what will you do to make childcare more affordable for families and increase wages and benefits for those workers?
Yeah, it's a great program, or great question, excuse me. I think that we need to work to continue to really strengthen the private-public partnerships that we see to make sure that we're doing a lot of the block grant funding that is there for low-income childcare, because any private sector daycare is looking at essentially two revenue streams, right? They have kind of what you would call the equivalent to the private insurance market, or folks that can pay full price for healthcare. And then you also have folks that they're going to be accessing to that are sort of on the lower income threshold. And specifically in childcare, you have the Child Care and Development Block Grants, or the CCDBG, which is quite a mouthful. But we need to make sure that program is fully funded so that we're essentially filling both of those two buckets equally, so that you have this lower income threshold, so that you're still able to, I put Hunter in daycare when I was working up in Redmond, and I was commuting up that way from the Bonnie Lake area, and we were putting him in a daycare, I believe in Federal Way, if memory serves. And one of the things that I saw was, there's a lot of military folks, there's a lot of police officers, firefighters, and other sort of blue collar professions where they were able to provide care. And this is incredibly crucial and important because these folks are shift workers in a lot of instances, nurses, that would not have been able to work their job if they did not have access to childcare, and most likely could not have afforded the full cost tuition rates. So I think built into that program, we need to make sure that we're stipulating to these private agencies that they're paying their employees an adequate salary. And I think that there should be some language written in there to a degree on a ratio, and making sure that they're being competitive, and that we're drawing in real high caliber applicants to these jobs, because much like teachers, we want, and we looked at a lot of different daycares, because we wanted to make sure that at the time our only child was being provided good care when we were not able to be there. And that's a scary proposition when you're not sure, how much these folks are being paid. And, one of the things that we did was we tried to, bring in cookies as much as we could and try and supplement, find the other ways to show our gratitude for these workers. But we really do need to make sure that they're getting paid an adequate wage. And there are some programs and some mechanisms at a federal level that we can pull in order to ensure that.
Thank you. That's great. I am childcare right now. This is
yeah, it's great.
There's no after hours care.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you. Yuval, you're up.
Thank you. Only 5% of Washington State's eligible families receive home visiting from federal, state, and local funding, leaving families unserved. Are you going to work towards expanding policies around paid family leave, early Head Start, and home visiting?
Yeah, I think that there's a couple different proposals that are kind of floating around at the federal level. Of course, Washington State has taken a look at this as well at a state level. I think that this is something that we in the federal delegation need to work closely with our state counterparts to ensure that we're expanding this program as much as we can, and that we're doing so in a sort of fiscally conscious manner to make sure that we're not, breaking the bank, but at the same time we're ensuring that the Head Start programs are fully funded, and that we do have these home care visit capabilities for the perhaps most vulnerable populations. The groups that need it the most are the ones that qualify for these home care visits, and we need to make sure that those communities are being fully served.
Thank you.
I think this one's me.
That's correct.
Prior to COVID-19, 1 in 11 children were homeless. Due to the pandemic, we've seen an increase in homeless children and families. What will you do to ensure children have safe and stable housing?
Yeah, so I think there's a whole host of things that we need to do. And one of the things is we need to stop playing partisan politics with the payroll protection program, or the PPP, because that is providing a lot of funding for employees that otherwise would lose their jobs. I think that we need to make sure that we're passing the legislation and doing our jobs as members of Congress. And I'm disappointed to see the obstruction coming out of the House of Representatives that's currently controlled by the Democrats. And we need to make sure that aid gets through, because this is a once in a lifetime pandemic. And there's a whole host of protections in there, including eviction requirements and the whole host of other things. And I also think that we need to work on the local public housing agencies in these states and at the federal level to make sure that we're, again, fully funding that, and that they're providing the best possible alternative to homelessness in a lot of these situations. So there's a host of things. One, we need to make sure that we're doing our job when it comes to COVID relief. The second thing, we need to make sure that, again, we're working with that local public housing agency to make sure that they're providing the best possible public housing affordability programs. And the other thing is, if you look at places like Auburn, where they have taken an incredible approach to homelessness, where they're actually consolidating all of their resources and they're going out.
So hard to speak down there.
And they're actually doing outreach in the community to make sure that they're removing as many people from homelessness as possible, making sure that they have access to these cares. And they're actually doing sort of a community-based court right there, so that they can identify folks that need the care, and that they can actually get them to the agencies and kind of hold their hand and usher them through in a host of other areas. And they're actually getting a lot of folks off the street. So, there's a lot of great solutions that are actually occurring on the ground here in the 8th Congressional District. Nancy Backus, the mayor of Auburn, is doing a great job there a little ride along with Kent Hay, their consolidated program outreach coordinator when it comes to homelessness, and it's just incredible work that they're doing. But there is, as I said earlier, work that we need to do at the federal level as well.
Thank you. Right now, Congress is working on a federal relief package, which includes help for childcare and Head Start providers impacted by the pandemic. Do you think another relief package is necessary? And if so, what would be your top spending priority?
I do. And I think it's being worked on right now by Steve Mnuchin and Speaker Nancy Pelosi. In fact, I think they spent 50 minutes on it today, which I would hope that they would be spending as much time on it as they need in order to reach some form of resolution. And if I'm a member of Congress, I would be pushing pushing them to spend a lot more time than two Paw Patrol episodes on trying to reach some sort of resolution on this incredibly important need. And I think that there's a lot of things still that need to be done. I think that we need to make sure that we're providing PPE funding for personal protective equipment for teachers. I think that we need to be doing everything that we can to facilitate local school boards to make an informed and safe decision to bring children back to school. I think that's for a host of reasons. You know, you talk to the experts and you see that domestic violence reporting has gone down, child abuse reporting has gone down, and sadly, those abuses are still going on, and they're still going on probably at the same, if not higher rate. It's just we're not seeing it because it is sort of falling through the cracks. And as a father of three, I find that devastating. I also think that we're going to see a host of folks that are going to suffer the educational consequences of remote learning. I think this is even more profound for special need populations, folks that need the structure. As again, the father of three, especially young ones, I can say that the younger ones do worse when it comes to remote learning than the older ones. And I think that is something that we should be focusing on, is trying to spread out our elementary aged school children, following science, making sure that we're doing everything that we can, wearing masks, protecting administration, staff, teachers, etc., but making sure that we're able to safely get back to school for a whole host of reasons.
Thank you. Our next question will be asked by Lori.
Hi there. My name is Lori Pittman, and my question is, nearly 1 in 5 children do not get enough to eat in the U.S. What's your plan to ensure all children and youth get the nutrition that they need and require?
Yeah, so one of the things I kind of alluded to at the top of the forum here is that early education starts before 3. And part of that is to make sure that we have access to breakfasts, to school lunch. I think that's another thing that we need to make sure that we're focusing on during this pandemic, is that we have folks access to free and reduced cost lunches. That is obviously not a part of the remote learning program. I also would strongly support school nutrition programs, and as hopefully a member of the Agriculture Committee, would work with the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, to reduce the red tape and make sure that we have the farm to school table, if you will, that we would reduce, because especially during COVID, there's a lot of wasted food. During these, a lot of the restaurants are shut down, and our supply chains are such that a lot of that food is being wasted. And I think there's a lot more that we can do to make sure that you have flexible options for schools, and that they could even potentially work directly with local farmers in the community, which would be particularly powerful for the 8th Congressional District, especially on the east side of the mountains.
Thank you. Our next 4 minutes that we have scheduled for this forum, I will open up to the floor to see if somebody has any follow-up questions or questions they would like to ask.
See Carolyn, Henry, and Sonia, not to call you guys out, but you're there. I see you.
Maybe they can't. Oh, wait a minute, Sonia, are you?
There we go.
Gonna try? There you are.
I actually have no questions. I was very intrigued by his answers and processing. Yeah, so I have no questions.
All right. Well, thank you.
Take the bag. Take the bag.
Cool. Carolyn, do you have any question? Do you have a question at all?
I actually have no questions either. I just wanted to listen in and meet him.
All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Carolyn.
Yeah. Well,
Appreciate
thank you.
Carolyn, where's home?
Home is Tacoma, Washington.
Tacoma. Okay, great.
Well, I think that probably concludes our program. So I don't know if you want to say anything, any final comments at all, Jesse, or anything you want to wrap up?
Yeah, well, again, just want to thank you guys, first and foremost, for the work that you do. Second, just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you guys. Again, I kind of talked about it a little bit at the top, but I'm a firm believer in early childhood education. It was something that I kind of missed out on when I was a younger kid. And I think that we could have utilized some of the programs that, I'm aware of today. Additionally, as a father of three, I'm, proud to go to Washington, D.C. and to fight for educational opportunities for them and for their peers. And I'm a strong believer in vocational education on the other end of the educational spectrum to make sure that any kid, regardless of what they want to do after high school, can take advantage of our education system, and that there's a clear understanding that not all educational opportunities like college are right for everybody, and that you can have a family wage job by becoming a skilled worker. And again, as the grandson of an electrician and the brother-in-law of 5 guys that are in the trades, I'm a firm believer in that. And again, I want to do everything, if elected, to make sure that we're fighting for education for every man, woman, and child in the 8th Congressional District. I fought to serve when I was in the Army, and I will do it again if honored to be the representative for the 8th Congressional District in Congress. And I will make sure that I am fighting just as hard for your kids as I am for mine. So thank you again.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great. Appreciate it.